In this video, we are going to talk about conditional statements. So conditional statements are statements that allow you to make decisions inside of your program. So the basic conditional statement is the if statement. So the structure of the if statement, you have the keyword if, and then you have some parentheses here. Inside this parentheses, you have a Boolean expression. Okay, and then after that, you have a block of code, and then your code's going to go in here. All right, so that's the way it looks. And so how this works is when execution comes to this if statement, it's going to evaluate this Boolean expression. And if you've watched the previous videos, you know that a Boolean expression basically boils down to either a true or a false. So if this Boolean expression is true, then this code block is going to execute. It's going to do all the statements in this code block, and then it's going to continue to the next statement after the if statement. If this Boolean expression is false, okay, then it's going to skip this entire code block and continue to the next statement that is after the if statement. Okay. There's a couple of common mistakes with the if statement that you don't want to make. So these are going to not be good if you make these. Most statements in Java get a semicolon at the end, right? But the if statement does not take an if a semicolon right here. So a lot of times you'll see people put a semicolon right here. That's going to be a big mistake because in Java, when Java sees that semicolon, it doesn't see, it basically disconnects these two statements. So Java will not see these related at all, right? It'll see this as being a completely separate statement from this, which is not generally what you want when you're writing this if statement, okay? So don't make that mistake there. The second mistake is forgetting to enclose your code block in curly braces. This really only applies if it's more than one line. You can get away with it if it only has one line. But if you have multiple lines, right, forgetting to put those code blocks there, and if you have, especially if you have it indented the way I have here, in your mind, you start thinking of these things as being together, whereas Java is not going to be thinking that at all. Java will only associate, if you don't have those curly braces, Java will only associate the statement that is immediately after the if statement with the if statement. This get new value line here, Java will see that as being completely separate, right, from your code. So when I'm teaching this, I always put those curly braces there just to emphasize. All right, let's see if we've got an example here. Okay, so here I've got a program, and in this program, I ask the user to type in a number. So enter a whole number. So enter an int, and I get that and stored in this value number. And then I want to print out two different messages depending on whether the number is greater than 5, or just let's say I want to print out if the number is greater than 5, I want to print out the number is bigger than 5. And if the number is less than 3, I want to print out the number is less than 3. So don't worry about why would you want to do something like that. Just kind of showing you an example of how this goes. So when I run it, you can kind of see how it goes. So if I type in 77, I'm going to get the number is bigger than 5, obviously. If I type in a 2, I'm going to get the number is less than 2. If I type in a 4, I'm not going to get any message, but, oh, there's more in here, but the program is ending, okay? All right, so let's trace through this using Canvas. All right, so I'm going to trace through here. It's going to create a scanner object. I'm going to enter a whole number. I'm going to type in that whole number. I'm going to type in a 5. So here you can see the value of number. All right, so now Java is going to compare, is number greater than 5? All right, and it is, right? That's true. Because, or actually, it's false, right? So 5 is not greater than 5. So you're going to see that Java is going to skip to the next statement that's after that if block. All right, next it's going to say, look at this, right? Is 5 less than 3? That's false. So again, Java is going to skip down here. All right, next it's going to check, is 5 equal to 8? That's false, so it's going to skip that. And I just get this message right here, the program is ending. All right, let's run that again. All right, this time I am going to enter a 0. So is 0 greater than 5? Nope, so it's going to skip to the next statement after that. So it skips this code block. Here, number is less than 3. Is a true statement, right? 0 is less than 3, so we're going to see it's going to execute this statement inside here. So it's going to print the number is less than 3. Is 0 equal to 8? Nope, it's not. So it's going to skip that, and it gets the program is ending. All right, one more time. This time, let's enter an 8. So is 8 greater than 5? It is. So I'm going to get the message the number is bigger than 5. Here I get 8 is less than 3, which is false, so it's going to skip that block. Here I get 8 is equal to 8. That is true, so it's going to print the number is equal to 8, and then keep going. All right, so that's how the if statement works. All right, next up is the if-else statement. The if-else statement starts off with an if statement right up here at the top. And then after the if statement, immediately after it is an else block. So here you would have the keyword else. There's no condition, right? And then followed by another code block after it, like this. All right, so that's the if-else statement. How the action works with that is when execution comes to this statement, it's going to evaluate that Boolean expression. Remember, a Boolean expression is going to either boil down to a true or a false. If that Boolean expression is true, it's going to execute all of the statements in code block 1 and then skip code block 2 and go to the next statement after the if-else statement. If the Boolean expression is false, okay, then it's going to skip code block 1. It's going to execute every statement in code block 2 and then continue to the next statement that's after the if-else statement. Okay, so the big difference is that here with an if-else statement, exactly one, right, of code block 1 or code block 2 is going to get executed. Whereas with the regular if statement, the code block might get done or it might not get done. All right. All right, let's take a look at an example of that. All right, here I ask the user to enter a number again, and then I check to see if the number is a multiple of 3. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, I use the remainder operator, right? If the number is a multiple of 3, then the remainder, when which is, remember, this is the remainder operator. When you divide the number by 3, the remainder will be 0, right? So this is saying if the number, when divided by 3, the remainder is 0, then print the number is a multiple of 3, all right? And then if it's not a multiple of 3, right, if this is false, then it's automatically true, right, that it's not a multiple of 3, all right? So I can just do that, print this on the else statement. All right, so just to see how it works, if I type in a 3, I'm going to get the number as a multiple of 3. If I type in a 4, I'm going to get the number is not a multiple of 3. If I type in a 6, it's a multiple of 3. If I type in a 9, it's a multiple of 3. If I type in 55, right, it's not a multiple of 3. So just running this through Canvas so you can see the two cases here and how this works. So this time I'm going to enter 12, which is a multiple of 3. All right, so this in this case, right, 12 divided by 3, the remainder is 0, right? Because 3 goes into 12 4 times, right, with 0 left over, so the remainder is 0. So it prints the number as a multiple of 3, and then it's going to skip that second block, like so. All right, next time if I enter a 5, all right, it's going to check, is 5 remainder 3 equal to 0? Well, 5 remainder 3 goes into 5 one time with 2 left over, right? So this evaluates to a 2. So is 2 double equal to 0? No, it's not. So that's false. So it's going to skip the first block and then go on to the second block and perform every statement in the second block and then continue on its way. All right. So that's how the if-else block works. Finally, we have the else-if block. The else-if block starts with a simple if statement up here in the top, and then is followed by an else-if block. The else-if block has an expression, all right? So it has a Boolean expression and a code block. And you can have many of those if you want, right? I can't remember the number, but you can have a lot of them, okay? Then at the very end of, after all the else-if blocks, there is an else block, just like with the else, if-else statement, okay? The else block is optional, but it's highly recommended that you do that. All you have to do, if you only have else-if blocks, you can always change the last else-if block to an else, if that's appropriate. And then a code block for the else, all right? So how does the evaluation work with an else-if statement, right? The key thing to remember here is that at most one code block will get executed, okay? At most one. If you have an else on there, then exactly one code block is going to get executed, okay? So that's the key to remembering this. So what's going to happen is that what's going to happen with the else-if block, let's take a look at it. The example here. All right, so here I have a program that evaluates your golf scores, right? So you enter your score for golf, and then it's going to tell you what your skill level is, all right? So let's run this. So if I get a 67, I'm a professional, right? If I get a 76, I'm an amateur. If I get an 89, I'm a duffer. If I get 102, I'm a scrub. And if I get 130, beginner. Okay. All right. So that's how it works. Let's take a look at a couple of those cases in there so you can see how this works. So if I hit Control Shift R and run this, all right, I'm going to type in a 65. All right, so score is 65. So again, what's going to happen is that the way this works is that each one of these Boolean expressions is going to be checked, right? It's going to go down. And the very first one that it finds that is true, that one's going to get executed. Okay, that code block, the corresponding code block will get executed. So right now score is 65, so 65 is less than 70 is a true statement, right? And so it's going to perform every statement in this code block, which there's only one. That'll print skill level professional, right? So you'll see that get printed. So that gets printed, and then it will skip every other code block that's in there, okay? So that's the key. Remember, at most one. Sometimes if you're new to this, you start thinking, does it, because 65 is less than 80, does it do this one and this one and this one? Does it do all of them? And the answer is in Java, no. It does at most one, okay? All right, let's run it again. All right, this time I am going to enter 77. All right. All right, so it's going to compare score, which is 77 to 70. Is 77 less than 70? The answer is no, so it's going to skip to the next one. Is 77 less than 80? That's true, so it's going to do this code, print this, do this code block right here, which is just going to print this, and then you'll see it's going to skip every single one of these down to the bottom. Okay. All right, let's do it one more time. All right, this time I'm going to type 145 for the score. So it's going to check, is 145 less than 70? Nope, so it's going to skip that code block. Is 145 less than 80? Nope, it's going to skip that one. Is 145 less than 90? Nope, so it's going to skip that one. Is 145 less than 120? Nope, so it's going to drop down all the way to this else, right? And so it will perform that one. So that's how these things get evaluated. It's going to check these conditions one by one until it finds one that's true. The first one that finds that's true, it's going to do that code block and then skip all of the others. If there's none that are true, right, it will fall either all the way through if there's no else block, or if there is an else block, that means that the code block that is associated with the else will get executed. So it's going to print skill level beginner, and that is it on that one. Okay. All right, so those are the conditional statements. They allow you to make decisions in your program.